One stock, love, hate. I am willing to wait. They hate things which they think cannot go up.
Saying if something goes wrong, I should have something to fall back on. We do not know the company as well as the owner does. Will you be able to sleep at night with such a portfolio? The answer is no. They are convinced about the story rather than about the data. If you are an Azim Premji, I am not saying you should sell his Wipro and buy a Reliance. And I am not telling Mukesh Ambani that you should sell Reliance and buy Wipro. No, they know their business. They know what they are doing. They are successful businessmen. You are not a successful businessman.
You can love a stock very intensely, but it never loves you back. Most people are unable to accept that something which has done so well till now can actually not do well in the future. This seems to be the basis of their love.
People somehow think equity market is like PPF on steroids. And I think if I say anything less than 15 people will say this guy is mad. 15 is my birthright. Equity market is a test of your temperament during bad periods of being able to sit tight. This share cannot go wrong.
Set ho gaya.
Very few people can sit on idle money.
The CEO has to diversify.
Yeah.
You are not a bigger investor than the CEO.
Because you already have it, you will not sell a Nestle, but you think Colgate is not worth buying.
Many people hate stocks. Either they hate it because they don't own it, or they hate it because it is a threat to what they own.
Reaching a party early is better than leaving a party late. Leave that to the Rakesh Jhunjhunwalas to take a concentrated bet. Last few years index has done well, so people think index is the way to go. Next 4 years if index doesn't do well, people will think index is not the way to go.
Subra, now we are going to talk about a topic which is very current, and I would call it the current obsession. The topic is one stock, love, hate. Today you see that you have millions of people in love with one stock. This has become a trend, and this trend is coming back in waves. You saw it in Yes Bank, you've seen it before in several companies, and now you're seeing it in ITC. You'll see it in the next one also. So this one stock love is something which is very easy to create in our market. Millions of people fall for it, and it almost borders on obsession, right? I see a lot of people ask me, I'm having 50-60% of my portfolio in this one stock which I love. What do you think is the risk? Before they ask what do you think is the risk, they also put some arguments. I am willing to wait. I am getting dividend. I don't mind not making money for a long time. I don't mind the stock going down. So many people are doing the same thing. How can they all be wrong? So for this love affair, they find lot of reasons to justify their obsessive love for a single stock. And they also show that love for a single stock in their portfolio. There is of course the other side also, which hates a single stock. So that is also there. But in between there are people like us who question this love and also question the hate. Let me also talk a little bit about the hate for a single stock. Most people hate a theme. For example, they hate PSUs, or they hate energy. They hate things which they think cannot go up and which they think are destined to die. Both these contexts, both the way these arguments are built, are extreme in their emotion, right? They're very extreme in their emotion. Questioning both the love and the hate draws a lot of reactions from people. But as an investor, as somebody who's invested across market cycles, what do you think one should really understand about this one stock love or one stock hate?
See, one stock love is how huge amount of wealth has been created. There is no doubt how an Azim Premji got rich, or how a Bill Gates got rich, or how a Warren Buffett got rich, or any of these people, because they had one stock. They put all their money, effort, time into it and made that huge. But remember, they also, during their journey, also diversified, saying if something goes wrong, I should have something to fall back on. So that all of us should have. We do not know the company as well as the owner does. So could Azim Premji and I have made a similar amount of money in percentage terms, both starting in 1980? Answer is no. Because in 1980, if my net worth was say 1 lakh or say 2 lakhs and I put 10,000 rupees in Wipro, today my net worth just because of that would be about 1,000 crores, assuming I reinvested the dividend. And 1,000 crores would be Wipro, and all others put together would be maybe 20 lakhs or maybe 2 crores. Will you be able to sleep at night with such a portfolio? The answer is no. You should not be able to, because going from low to high is fine, but you can't come from 1,000 crore to 2 crore net worth. You just can't come. So you will have to diversify. For that, you have to understand that company so well, right? It's not a Berkshire Hathaway, because Berkshire Hathaway has got lots of investments. Whereas Wipro is a single company, Infosys is a single company, TCS is a single company, ITC is a single company, HDFC Limited or HDFC Bank, again HDFC Bank is a single company, HDFC Limited, at least you have some diversification possible. So falling in love with one share, it does happen, especially for people with ESOP, and people who are buying new, they are somehow convinced that there is value investing, there is dividend based investing, because of which they will create wealth. And the most important thing is, most of them do not even see what returns they are getting. They are convinced about the story rather than about the data. So you could have a fantastic share in your head saying, I bought this share doubled in 2 years, that was fantastic, but after that for 4 years it may have done nothing. So constantly looking at how your portfolio is doing and what can be better. Right? You don't sell a share because the share is bad, but you also sell a share because there's some better opportunity. So if I sold an X company and bought a Y company which went up faster or went up better, I'm doing well, right? So understanding portfolio construction and portfolio sizing is very important for creating wealth in the equity markets, unless you're the owner. If you are an Azim Premji, I am not saying you should sell his Wipro and buy a Reliance. And I am not telling Mukesh Ambani that you should sell Reliance and buy Wipro. No, they know their business. They know what they are doing. They are successful businessmen. You are not a successful businessman. You are creating a portfolio. I mean, creating a portfolio is also a business. You are doing it, but please go by the principles. When Warren Buffett says people who don't understand, only they diversify, please understand he is in the insurance business. And if I am in the insurance business, I want to write business in India, in US, in Pakistan, in Afghanistan, in Africa, every place. Because that is how I reduce my risk. How do I reduce my risk? By diversifying. So concentration risk is huge. Most people don't know portfolio sizing. That is the reason why, especially if it's a share which is going up and you are buying more, your concentration increases. I see concentration risk among new millennial investors who are getting carried away by 1 or 2 people, and in people holding ESOPs, because suddenly they think their company is the best, so HDFC Bank is the best or TCS is the best. So an unnatural skew of 80-90% being just one share does happen, but it's dangerous.
How do you handle this overwhelming feeling of love for a stock, which is basically created by echo chambers? See, let me explain. So let's say you follow a small set of people. They keep on talking about the stock 24/7, or you keep on watching some channels. They keep on promoting some teams. Today, even TV channels are guilty of promoting these multinational FMCG companies, or even a Pidilite, which is trading at a valuation which it has never historically traded at. My experience is, when stock trades at such valuation and later it fails to meet those growth expectations, you can love a stock very intensely, but it never loves you back. And over a period of time, gradually the valuation taper off. I'm not saying the company is going broke. Companies will be there, they'll keep growing at a certain rate, and economic benefits will accrue. But wealth creation probably doesn't happen.
Correct.
Most people are unable to accept that something which has done so well till now can actually not do well in the future. This seems to be the basis of their love. Okay, two things. One is this feeling. The other is that, oh, these guys are giving them so much information. It's almost like giving a guy steady injections to keep him on a high. So these two factors are contributing to the one stock love. How does an investor relieve himself? How does he break free from this drugged state of mind?
See, first of all, you have to believe data. When you believe data, you take up any share. Forget Pidilite, take up Nestle. You look at the CAGR from 1977 when it went public till today, and you say, wow, fantastic. Don't do that. Look at the yearly return, and you will see bad years when the company is actually given no return. Maybe last year return must have been 3-4%. I don't think it's more than that. So when the market has gone up by say 30-40%, if this has gone up by 3-4% last 1 year, maybe some shares which you have not even heard of have gone up more than Nestle has gone up, right? Including the dividend. First of all, there is no dividend worth talking about, because the dividend yield in India is low, and in the MNCs which are overpriced, definitely it is not more than 1%. So forget the dividend yield. So you must have got 3-4%. So what is very important is, look at the return that this share gives you on a yearly basis, and you will realize that 1 or 2 amazing 67%, 70% kind of return has camouflaged the bad 5 years following it. So if you bought it at a high and then you saw it doing nothing for 4-5 years, I can assure you, you will get tired, and one day you will say, oh, this is doing nothing, let me sell, and then it might go up again. So equity market is not like PPF. People somehow think equity market is like PPF on steroids. In PPF I am getting 7%, in equity market I will get 11% or 13% or 15%. I think if I say anything less than 15, people will say this guy is mad. 15 is my birthright. I have to get 15% in any share which I buy. That's an amazing expectation, because countries cannot grow at 15% for 30 years. Your equity cannot give you 15% return for 30 years on a regular basis. 15% return will mean 1 year of 45 and 2 years of 0. Do you have the ability to sit through that? So look at every share and look at every index. On a quarterly basis, you see what happens. And ask yourself, do you have the ability to sit tight during those bad periods? Equity market is a test of your temperament during bad periods of being able to sit tight. That is not easy. So when this one stock falls, or even falls a little, you might panic and sell and wipe out all the so-called gains which you made, right? So you bought a share 100 rupees, it went to 167, last year 67% return. It's a good time to sell, because next year is not going to go up by 67%. It may go up by 7%, but not by 67%. Unfortunately, your expectation is, this share cannot go wrong.
Set ho gaya.
Set ho gaya. And one more thing, it will not go below my price. I bought it for 100, it has gone to 167. Now, how much can it fall? 130, 140, that's okay. It will never come to 100. This is my price syndrome. But there's no reason why it cannot go below 100. The company doesn't know that you bought it at 100. The share doesn't know you bought it at 100. So it can go below that.
But how does somebody taper down this obsessive love before it becomes a fatal attraction?
Yeah, by saying, I have bought this share for a particular goal. I put 1 lakh in this share. This has become 4 lakhs. This is fantastic. I'll sell for 4 lakhs and take a foreign tour, which I always wanted to take. Use it to buy some luxuries or switch to buy something else. Never say you're selling a share, because your mind says, Hare, selling a share means that money is going to be idle. Very few people can sit on idle money. And if you see last 2 years, those are the guys who are making the maximum money.
Correct.
Buffett, Google, Alphabet, those are the guys who are making money, because people are saying, look at how much cash they have. Next 10 years, they can pay all their expenses even if their sales goes to 0. Reliance. So people see companies.
The moment they raise cash, the company went. Valuation went up.
So obviously, the ability to sit on cash will make you rich. But if you don't have that ability, constantly selling. I know one CEO who sold out and he was still left with 30% and he was still getting ESOP, who used to sell on the 7th of every month. This I am talking of 2004, 2005. 7th of every month he would sell his shares worth 3 lakh rupees and put it into 2 mutual funds. So from one company risk he was going to 80 companies. So he was reducing risk.
So you're saying when a
everybody has to do
CEO
that.
has to diversify,
Yeah.
you are not a bigger investor than the CEO.
Correct.
I saw this thing, before his, passing, YC Deveshwar sold all his shares in ITC.
Right.
And today, the price of ITC is at least 40% lower than the price at which he sold off his shares,
Correct.
which was a smart move by him. The CEO of a company, somebody who has built the business for 20, 30 years, takes that call. But we investors become obsessive. Mr. Aditya Puri,
Yeah,
before he demitted office,
absolutely.
sold all his shares in
Correct.
HDFC and said, I have had a good innings. So when the person who has contributed a lot to what the company is today is willing to sell and take a sabbatical, investors should not have any ill feelings or any kind of hesitation in taking tough calls. That's your
Yeah, and diversify, because if you put yourself in a place where you write your investment philosophy statement. Why are you investing? What are you buying? Right? I think the first thing which you should do as an investor is start doing journaling. Write down why you are buying. Write down at what price you will sell and why you will do. Today, if you are managing a mutual fund, your trustee will ask, right? Why are you buying the share? What price you will sell? At what price you will? At what date will you sell if it does not reach that price? You have to write down the logic of why you are buying, when you are going to sell, and that you have to write the day you buy. And you should not go back and alter and say, no, I will. You bought it at 100 to sell it at 200. At 200, take a fresh call. Maybe you sell and buy it again. Brokerage rates are not so high. Pay the 10% long-term capital gains and then rethink whether you will buy. Read about behavioral biases. You will realize that this is an endowment bias. Because you already have it, you will not sell a Nestle, but you think Colgate is not worth buying.
Now about hatred, Subra. Many people hate stocks. Either they hate it because they don't own it, or they hate it because it is a threat to what they own. Right?
True.
It's like a jung, a war between what I own and what I don't own. Hatred is basically born from that perspective. How do you think people should handle this hatred? Because hatred is self-destructive. Most people don't realize that.
Correct.
When you hate something too much and you keep on, growing that hatred, it is self-destructive. But I find today that this hatred is being grown exponentially and very unproductively by a lot of jobless people. And how do you think an investor should handle this hatred?
See, I always feel that even if you don't need an advisor, you need somebody whom you can sound out. And it is always nice to sound out a guy who thinks completely differently from you. So if you are obsessed about equity and you have 90% or 95% of your money in equity, have your portfolio review done by a guy who hates equity. Maybe he loves debt and most of his money is in debt and real estate and he hates equity, and he will ask you about every share and say, why do you have this? If you can't write 50 words or 100 words or explain to your 10-year-old child as to why you have it, it is worth reconsidering. And you ought to say, many people, including mutual funds, completely lost it when they said, oh, I will not buy Reliance. This hatred saying, oh, something is wrong. They underperformed, everything happened, that they had to eat humble pie and come back and buy it. You cannot be biased. So if you are creating your own portfolio, use the Sensex as a barometer and say what percentage will be how much, and you have no logic to exceed it by 10-20%. So if 15% of the index is NBFC or BFSI, then make sure in your own portfolio it is between 10 and 20. It need not be 15, but there is no logic for it being 50%. Don't go overweight on any sector. Today you may feel that people are not traveling, so airlines won't do well, hotels won't do well, but tourism could come back with a vengeance, and you will find that pharma companies are neglected and hotel and tourism related infrastructure go up. Remember the work which Modi government is doing. They're building up 100 airports. It takes a little time to understand 100 active airports means how many flights, how much money of that, how much of that will go to SpiceJet, Indigo, etc. I am not recommending the stocks, but just imagine the hotels, hotel chains, vacation homes, they are all going to boom. I don't know whether it will happen in 2021, 22 or 23, but you know that reaching a party early is better than leaving a party late when everybody is puking, right?
So you are saying that control your obsessive love, see what you hate with a more open mind, and somewhere you will find a balance between this love-hate relationship.
Yeah, create the index, take the Nifty or do the industry-wise breakup. You may have different companies, but within that only your industries have to be there, right? There could be some industry which is not represented, that ignore it. Leave that to the Rakesh Jhunjhunwalas to take a concentrated bet. You don't. You are creating a portfolio which will let you sleep well, eat well, and live your life, maybe another 30, 40, 50 years. That time it has to last. That longevity of your portfolio is necessary. If you have a concentrated portfolio, something happens, it should not happen that at 60 you're looking for a new job, or at 78 you're telling your children you have to live with them because you've run out of money.
What about people who are obsessed about the index? Because index has got 40% in financials, which is the highest weightage in history, right? For financials, what very high weightage. So by virtue of the index itself reflecting this love-hate paradox, so you are having energy and other things at their lowest, even infra is at the lowest, whereas financials at the highest. So there is a love-hate within the index benchmark itself. So are you suggesting that probably a simple way to deal with this excessive love and hate is to tone it down and rebalance it within what is a well-discovered space, rather than going into an undiscovered and uncharted territory like small caps or micro caps or something like that? Are you suggesting that within the well-discovered parts of the market itself, you tone down your love for one part and slightly be open or have an open mind towards what is now hated? Is that a good formula to rebalance?
I don't know, because one thing is to be obsessed about the index, but to be obsessed about the index, you should be obsessed only about the world index. You need to understand that 45% of your money should be in US for that. Because if you are obsessed about the index, you cannot be obsessed about 3% of the world index or 2% of the world index and saying, I'm obsessed with this, and this is a scientifically created index. Remember, it's a market capitalization weighted index, and only for the free float stock. So, and some companies are so big, like the Coal Indias and the Steel Authority, that they will carry an unnaturally heavy weight. And then companies like HDFC Limited and HDFC Bank, which have no known promoters, obviously their weight will be high. So you have to also scientifically understand how the index is working. You index and you also buy Reliance and you also buy HDFC Bank. Just imagine how much damage you could be doing, because they are already heavyweights in the index. If you are only in the index, you run the risk that yes, there is a bias in the index itself, right? So if you do that, have a contra fund which takes a different view, or you get into equal weighted index where there is no bias of saying I'll be excessive towards any sector. So over 5 years, your index may outperform a equal weighted index, but over 7 years, an equal weighted index may outperform. But understanding all this, thinking about all this, if you are not in a position to do, please take professional help, because it's not easy. Professionals struggle with all this. Professionals are struggling today to say whether they should be in a large and mid cap fund or should they be in the index. Index looks very easy over the last 3-4 years, but I'm sure over the next 5 years they might, some large cap funds might create more alpha, right? All these things will happen. If you ask me, indexing is an immediacy effect. Last few years index has done well, so people think index is the way to go. Next 4 years, if index doesn't do well, people will think index is not the way to go. So what people will do is simply the immediacy effect.
So whether it is index or individual stocks, one needs to tone down his love for excessive love for it.
Correct.
And even in the parts of the market which are today disliked intensely, one need to tone down the hate for it.
Correct.
And strike a balance between excessive love and excessive hate by reducing both and forming a more balanced approach towards investing. Can I summarize this way, Subra?
And journaling. Please write down why you are buying, why you are selling, because 6 months later either you would have a book on humor, or you could be a great fund manager, go and show it to a fund manager, he might give you a job. So journaling is very important. Nobody speaks about journaling. It's painful, it is boring, but after some time you will have fun doing it. So do journaling.
Thank you for this wonderful interaction on excessive love and excessive hate for
My
one
pleasure.
stock or one team. Let's continue this conversation and extend it to other things also. Thank you.
Done. Thanks.